Welcome to the deep dive. You've shared your sources, and we're here to extract the knowledge you need to get well informed quickly.
Exactly. Think of this as, your streamlined path to understanding complex topics without getting bogged down in maybe the stuff you don't need.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a book that offers some, pretty provocative ideas about money. We've got it right here.
We do.
And our goal is really to unpack the core financial principles it lays out, especially by looking at those contrasting perspectives of the two dads.
Right. And this exploration, it's really tailored for you, the learner, if you're aiming to grasp fundamental financial concepts or maybe looking for new ways to think about wealth.
Or just want to understand finance without, the headache of endless jargon.
Exactly. You're in the right place.
Yeah.
We're going to try and break down the key insights in a clear, engaging, and hopefully thought-provoking way.
Okay, so the book's foundation, it's built on the author's experiences with two very different father figures and their approaches to money.
Yeah, there's his biological father, the poor dad, highly educated, worked in government.
Right. And then there's the rich dad, his friend Mike's father, who was an entrepreneur, self-made.
And that immediately sets up this really powerful contrast in financial philosophies, doesn't it?
It does.
We see it crystallized early on with these two, really striking quotes. The poor dad believed that the love of money is the root of all evil. While the rich dad, he kind of countered with the lack of money is the root of all evil.
Wow, that's quite a contrast. And it's important to get that these weren't just offhand remarks.
No, not at all. They represented deeply held beliefs that influenced how each man lived, how they made financial decisions.
And the author says this fundamental difference really pushed him to think critically about money rather than just, accepting one viewpoint.
And what's insightful here, I think, is the book's argument that our core understanding of money, it's primarily shaped at home, not really in the classroom.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he argues that many people, even those with impressive academic credentials, can end up with what he calls a poor person's financial programming, just because of the habits and beliefs they picked up growing up.
That's a key point. The book highlights that schools focus on academic and professional skills, sure, but they often completely overlook teaching essential financial literacy.
Right, which can lead to, highly skilled professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, still facing money struggles because they haven't grasped the basics of managing and growing it.
So it raises that question. If school misses the mark, and maybe our upbringing gives us limiting beliefs, where do we learn to build wealth?
Well, the book really emphasizes the rich dad's early lessons. That's kind of the bedrock of this crucial financial education he received.
Okay, so this is where some of those memorable stories kick in, like that early business attempt.
The toothpaste tubes. Yeah, him and his friend Mike, when they were just 9, trying to collect used tubes, melt them down.
Right, remold them to sell, which didn't last long.
No, he's got to explain about counterfeiting. But the rich dad, he saw it differently. He actually praised their initiative, their creativity.
And that's where that phrase comes in, you're only poor if you give up.
Exactly. The lesson was about taking action, trying things, learning from the process, not just, sitting around dreaming about being rich.
And then there was the job working for Mike's dad for, 10 cents an hour?
Yeah, 10 cents. Which sounds crazy, but it wasn't about the money itself. The rich dad deliberately kept the pay super low.
To teach a different lesson.
Exactly, to teach them about not working solely for money. The poor dad would have pushed for higher wages, right?
Right. Typical thinking.
But the rich dad wanted them to feel that tiny paycheck after deductions, to see how much gets taken away, and understand the limits of just relying on a salary.
Which leads into that central idea about fear, doesn't it? That fear often drives why people work for money.
The book argues lots of people get trapped in this cycle working because they're afraid. Afraid of bills, afraid of losing their job, afraid of not having enough.
And according to the rich dad, that fear can make you a slave to money.
Yeah, he uses that metaphor, the donkey chasing the carrot it never catches.
And the example of Mrs. Martin.
Right, representing people trapped by both fear and desire. Working hard for that promise of future rewards the carrot, job security, a small pension maybe, but never really getting financially free.
So the big question is, how do you break that cycle?
Well, that's where understanding financial literacy and, crucially, the concept of assets comes in. The book lays down a fundamental rule.
Which is?
Rich people acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets.
Okay, that sounds important. Let's break that down. What's an asset? What's a liability in this view?
The rich dad's definition is really straightforward. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that.
Puts money in, takes money out. Okay.
And he uses basic financial statements, the income statement for income and expenses, and the balance sheet for assets and liabilities to show how this works visually.
And the key is understanding how those two connect, the flow of money.
Exactly. True financial intelligence isn't just about your salary. It's about where that money goes. Is it buying assets or liabilities?
This makes me think about the house discussion. The common idea that your home is your biggest asset.
Right. And the book challenges that.
Mm.
It argues that for most people, your primary residence actually functions more like a liability.
Because of the expenses? Mortgage, taxes, insurance, upkeep?
Precisely. It consistently takes money out of your pocket. Now, obviously, it doesn't really touch on the emotional side or potential long-term appreciation. It's purely focused on that cash flow aspect.
Okay. And this ties into that Buckminster Fuller definition of wealth the book mentions.
Yeah, a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward if I stopped working today. It's about survival time based on your assets generating cash.
Which is different from just net worth, right? Because net worth might include things that don't actually produce income.
Exactly. The goal is to get enough cash flow coming from your asset column to cover all your living expenses. That's financial independence. That's when you're out of the rat race.
So the core message is focus on building that asset column. What kinds of things does the book count as real assets?
It gives several concrete examples, things like businesses that can run without you needing to be there all the time.
Managed by others, yeah.
Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, those pooled investments. Also, income-generating real estate, royalties from intellectual property like books or music, patents, stuff like that.
And it warns against the trap of buying luxuries first.
Definitely. The common mistake is buying the fancy car or the big house first, often with debt, which just adds liabilities. The book says the rich build their assets first and then use the income from those assets to buy luxuries.
Makes sense. Build the engine before you buy the shiny paint job.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And this leads into another area where the financially literate often operate differently, taxes and corporations.
Taxes. Always a fun topic.
Yeah. The book gives a quick history, how income taxes started, partly based on that Robin Hood idea, tax the rich to help the poor.
But as the book points out, the rich, or at least the financially savvy, often found ways to minimize their tax burden legally.
Right. And one key strategy discussed is using corporations.
And it's important to clarify what corporation means here, right? It's not always a giant building.
Exactly. It's a separate legal entity, a legal structure, basically. And this structure can offer big advantages, like potentially lower tax rates on profits, and crucially, the ability to pay for certain business expenses before taxes are calculated.
So the money spent on legitimate business expenses isn't taxed as income first.
Correct. It's like creating a separate legal person for your business dealings, which has different tax rules.
So the underlying message seems to be that financial education helps you understand these rules of the game, including the tax system.
And potentially use similar legal strategies to reach your own financial goals. It's about knowing how the system works.
Okay. All this talk about assets, taxes, it leads to the idea of financial IQ. How does the book define that?
It's not just one thing. It's presented as a combination, a synergy, really, of 4 key areas.
Okay, what are they?
First, accounting, basically. Understanding financial statements, reading the numbers. Second, investing, making money work for you. Third, understanding market supply and demand, how things work economically. And fourth, knowing the law, especially around finance and business.
Accounting, investing, markets, and law. Got it.
And there's that anecdote about the woman playing the Cash Flow board game.
Oh, yeah, she got upset.
Yeah, she got frustrated because the game took time. It didn't just give instant answers on what to invest in.
Which kind of proves the point, doesn't it?
Exactly. The game's designed to mirror reality, let you practice, see consequences safely. Her frustration showed perhaps a desire for quick fixes instead of actually learning the principles.
And this connects to luck, too. The idea that luck isn't just random.
Right. The book suggests luck is often created. It comes from having the financial intelligence to spot opportunities when they appear, and then having the knowledge and maybe the resources to actually act on them.
So preparation meeting opportunity?
Kind of, yeah. Financial preparation anyway.
The book also talks about creating money. That sounds intriguing. How does that work?
Well, it gives this example of generating, I think it was a $40,000 note, paying 10% interest.
Oh.
by strategically buying a mortgage from someone, maybe at a discount, and then immediately reselling it or structuring a deal where someone owes you that money plus interest.
So using financial knowledge to structure a transaction that creates an income stream?
Exactly. It illustrates generating income and assets through like creative financial deals, not just earning a wage and saving. The interest becomes income, and the initial deal might not even be taxed right away.
So it's contrasting that typical work hard, save hard approach.
With developing financial smarts and leveraging assets to make money work for you. It loops back to those 4 pillars of financial IQ: financial literacy, investing, markets, law.
And it distinguishes between investor types, type 1 and type 2.
Yeah, type 1 is more the person buying packaged investments like mutual funds, which is fine, but maybe more passive.
And type 2.
Type 2 is more proactive.
Yeah.
They're actively looking for overlooked opportunities, deals maybe others don't see, and they understand how to put deals together, maybe raise capital.
Like that story of the friend who bought the rundown house.
Exactly. And then discovered it came with extra valuable lots attached that weren't obvious. That's the type 2 mindset, seeing value where others don't.
Okay, so it's not just about numbers. The book also stresses other skills, right? Like sales and marketing.
Absolutely critical. There's that great story about the talented author who wrote brilliantly but couldn't sell books.
Until she learned sales and marketing.
Right. It shows you can have the best product. But if you can't communicate its value and, well, sell it, success is hard to come by. It's not enough to just be technically good at something.
And this connects to management skills, too.
Managing cash flow, managing systems, and managing people. Those are key. And sales and marketing are seen as crucial, specialized skills within that.
There's also that contrast again between the dads, this time regarding work. Poor dad valued job security,
while rich dad valued learning. The advice is to look for work not just based on pay, but on what skills you'll gain. What will you learn?
That's a big mindset shift for many people.
It really is. And the McDonald's analogy fits here too.
About the hamburgers.
Yeah. The point isn't that McDonald's makes the absolute best hamburger in the world. Lots of places might make a better burger.
But their success is undeniable.
Exactly. And the book argues it's down to their incredible business systems. Highly efficient, replicable systems for everything. The system can be more important than the product itself.
Okay, let's talk about a big hurdle. Fear. Fear of losing money, fear of failure.
Yeah, the book tackles this head on. It acknowledges everyone feels that fear, even rich people.
But the difference is how they handle it.
That's the argument. The wealthy, or those becoming wealthy, don't necessarily feel less fear, but they don't let it paralyze them. They see mistakes or losses as learning opportunities. They take calculated risks.
Calculated being the key word there.
Definitely. It mentions that Texan saying,
Texans don't bury their failures. They get inspired by them.
That's the one. It captures that resilient mindset. Reframes setbacks as lessons, not stop signs.
And this is the opposite of being cynical or listening to that chicken little voice in your head.
Right. The doubts, the fears, the what-ifs. The book contrasts that with Colonel Sanders facing rejection after rejection late in life, but sticking with it. Perseverance despite the naysayers.
Another really practical principle mentioned is paying yourself first. How does that work?
It sounds simple, but it's powerful. It means allocating money from your income to your asset column before you pay your bills, your mortgage, your credit cards.
Before? That sounds difficult. What if there isn't enough left?
Well, that's kind of the point, according to the book. It might feel counterintuitive or even stressful at first.
I bet.
But the argument is this builds financial discipline. And the pressure of still needing to pay your creditors after you've paid yourself first can actually motivate you.
How?
It forces you to find ways to generate more income or manage your money better to cover everything. It strengthens your financial muscles, so to speak.
Interesting. So it creates pressure that drives action.
That's the idea. And finally, the book touches on overcoming laziness, just not bothering to manage your money, and also arrogance.
Arrogance. How does that fit in?
Well, arrogance can make you think you know it all. You stop learning, you dismiss new ideas or opportunities because you think they're beneath you or you already have the answers. It's a huge barrier to growth.
Okay, so if someone's listening and thinking, right, where do I start? What's the advice?
The book says there is gold everywhere. Opportunities are all around us. But most people aren't trained to see them.
Because they lack the financial literacy we talked about.
Exactly. So the first step is really committing to continuous learning. Self-education is key.
Like reading books, attending seminars.
Yeah, the author mentions I think it was $385 real estate seminar he attended that led to huge returns later. Investing in your financial education pays off. Learning from people who've done it.
And practically, what actions can you take?
Become comfortable making offers. Don't just look, act. Shop for bargains, not just in shops, but in investments, in real estate. Remember that profit is often made when you buy low, not just when you sell high.
So finding those undervalued assets again.
Right. And think big. Learn from history what worked, what didn't, and always remember that core idea. What's in your head, your financial knowledge and mindset, ultimately determines what ends up in your hands.
It also briefly touches on the cash-rich wealth flow quadrant, doesn't it? ESBI.
Yeah. Employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. It's a framework to understand where your income comes from and maybe where you want it to come from. Encourages you to think about moving towards B&I quadrants for more leverage and passive income.
And finding your path beyond just a job.
Right. Using intuition, focusing on personal growth alongside the financial stuff.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the main takeaways seem to be, well, the huge importance of financial education, first off.
Absolutely. Understanding that difference between assets and liabilities, what puts money in your pocket versus what takes it out.
Making money work for you instead of just working for money, getting out of that fear-driven cycle.
Yeah. And managing fear, learning from failures, not letting cynicism stop you, and that commitment to continuous learning. Minding your own business, financially speaking.
It definitely provides maybe a controversial, but certainly a valuable starting point for looking at money differently and maybe taking more control, wouldn't you say?
I'd agree. It challenges a lot of conventional wisdom and really pushes you to examine your own beliefs about money and wealth.
So on that note, here's a final thought for you, the listener. Which of these Rich Dad principles we talked about really hit home for you right now? What's maybe one small thing, one tiny step you could take today to start minding your own business and focusing on building that asset column?
Something to think about.
Yeah.
We definitely encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and building your own financial understanding.